Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Dylan here. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing and breaking down why you should not drive for Uber or Lyft for that matter. Or if you already are, why you should probably quit and move on to a different job. So I am extremely opinionated on this, and I do want to give you some good, strong love, some tough love, and tell you that driving for Uber and Lyft is probably not the best idea. And you might think, well, isn't that pretty ironic, Dylan, given that you run the YouTube channel, the Rideshare Hub? Don't get me wrong. I think driving for Uber and Lyft is a great way to have some side money or to use it temporarily to get out of a bad situation, which is exactly what I did. I signed up to drive for Uber and Lyft because I had credit card debt and I had a car payment on my car. And obviously on top of that, I had my rent, I had my insurance, I had tons of payments, and I needed to get out of debt. I started listening to this guy called Dave Ramsey. And he basically said, you need to get out of debt. He's like, if you have credit card debt, you're paying high interest, he's like, there's no way you're gonna get ahead. And I, basically had no money in my savings. So I ended up basically stopped going out to party. I was also doing like acting at the time. So I was paying for acting classes. I was getting my demo reels done, which that was like $1,000. I had headshots, that was another $400. Acting class was $300 a month. X, Y, and Z, I was doing it all. And I was going, on top of that, I was going out and partying and going out and drinking and eating out all the time. And basically, yeah, I was just spending money. And I had credit card debt. I had $5 grand in credit card debt. I maxed out 2 credit cards, one for $2 grand and one for $3 grand. And yeah, so anyways, I have my whole life to thank because of Uber and Lyft, by the way. I'm not trying to say Uber and Lyft is horrible, because Uber and Lyft really taught me how to get out of credit card debt. And it actually taught me I basically, it shifted my money mindset, because I started going out and doing a ride and I would make, $10 on this ride. And then I had to calculate, okay, well, I just probably spent $1 on that ride. I probably spent another $2 on my car wear and tear and depreciation. So I really only profited like $7. And then, I gotta go eat lunch and I'm going to Chipotle and I'm spending $12 on a burrito. So I stopped eating the Chipotle and I started getting disciplined, and I started saying, okay, you know what? I'm gonna cook all my meals from home. I'm gonna get up early, I'm gonna cook my meals, and I'm gonna start driving, and I started picking up side jobs. I used to be a tutor, like back in high school, and even after high school, but I started doing tutoring again. I was just starting to pick up little side jobs so I could make more money, so I could get out of debt, this horrible debt. I felt like I was drowning. I cut up my credit cards with scissors, both of them. I cut them up, and I started driving for Lyft, and as soon as I paid one of them off, I called up Discover and I said, can you please cancel this credit card? Can you please shut it down? I do not trust myself with this credit card. And they were like, yep, we're gonna close it down. So they closed it down. I don't think my credit score maybe even dropped like 5 points, but it was like, it went up because I paid it off, so it didn't really matter anyways. So I paid that off, then I had one credit card left. I started, I kept driving for Uber and Lyft and all these, mostly just Uber and Lyft at the time. I was working other jobs too. I was working at middle school and I was working at Nike. I was doing all these 3 jobs at once. It was crazy. But I wasn't going out to eat, so I had all this leftover time. So I wasn't going out to eat and I wasn't hanging out with my friends. I was like, I'm sorry, bro. I ain't going out for burritos on Taco Tuesday and buying margaritas. I'm driving for Lyft tonight, baby. So with all that being said, I just wanted to preface this video by saying that I do think Uber and Lyft is an incredible opportunity, because you can sign up and then start driving the next day. Now, but what comes with that is a lot of cons as well. So it has a lot of pros, it has a lot of cons. Con number 1 is that you have to use your own car. And I think that this is basically the biggest quote unquote scam of being an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, because they advertise, oh, you can make 30, 40 bucks an hour. By the way, you're using your own car and you gotta basically pay to work. And there's actually been independent studies showing that 50% of Uber drivers only make around $10 an hour after expenses. And there's even 15% of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers who are making negative money. There's people who are losing money by driving, because think about somebody who's driving Uber in a brand new car. Your car is a 2023 car, whatever, and you put on 50,000 miles on it, that car, what happens to that brand new car? The value of that car just dropped in half. You just lost $20,000 because you drove Uber, and you wouldn't have gotten that car or worked for, it's like, okay, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So here, the main reasons why you should not drive for Uber, number one is if you are looking if you're trying to use this as a long-term career, you should not do that. Should not do that. There's no pay raises. There was just a recent study that came out from UCLA showing that within the past 3 years, Uber and Lyft have increased the price of the fares for passengers by 50%, and they've only increased the pay for drivers by like 30%. A lot of drivers even say that they've been making the same, if not less. And there are studies showing that over the past 3 years, Uber and Lyft drivers have been making relatively the same. So despite the price of inflation, house prices have gone up like crazy. You're basically running uphill to try to keep up with inflation if you're driving Uber and Lyft long term. You're gonna end up working more and more hours and for basically making the same amount of money just so that you can pay for things that now cost more because the price of the US dollar has gone down significantly with the out of control spending of the government and just stimulus checks and X, Y, and Z, and over time inflation happens. That's kind of how it works because they're printing money, and that's how our US dollar goes down in value. That's why you shouldn't just keep money in a random checking account. You should keep some money, but should be investing this money or at least keeping it in a high yield savings account, something that's at least making you 3%, or putting the money into the stock market or real estate or maybe even crypto or gold. I don't know. So with that being said, why should you not drive for Uber? What are the main reasons you should not drive for Uber? You should not drive for Uber if you don't have a car that you can use that's used. Because you want to use a car that's already depreciated. Basically, you want to drive around in a junker. You don't want to drive around in a nice new car to drive for Uber and Lyft. Number two, you should not drive for Uber. I'm gonna say it. If you kind of wing your taxes, if you're not good at filing taxes, now there are apps like Work Solo that will help you with your taxes, tracking your mileage. But if you're not good at filing your taxes, this could be a huge career change and a huge risk. A very good risk to calculate is am I going to be able to know how to properly file my taxes? You're now a 1099 worker. If you just made 80 grand, guess what? You're not getting taxes taken out every single month or every single paycheck. You have to pay a lump sum at the end of the year. And if you're not tracking your miles properly, if you're not tracking your expenses properly, if you don't have an accountant, or if you're not really diligent with all these tracking things, you could end up owing 40 grand at the end of the year. Maybe not 40, but maybe 20 or 30. And are you ready to have a $20,000 tax bill at the end of the year? Or are you now gonna owe the IRS money? These are things, and another thing is if you're not good at numbers, if you're not good at math, and again, this is kind of a tough love thing, but if you just wake up and drive your car and see the dollar amount that Uber gives you, and it says you made $100 in that day, and you go, okay, looks good to me. If that's kind of your attitude with driving for Uber, I would say this is not a good job for you. If you really want to make good money with Uber, or at least figure out if you are making good money, you want to have basically a spreadsheet of each day you go out and you have your revenue, your expenses, and then your profit, because you are now operating a business. Your revenue that you bring in is the money that you get from Uber. Your expenses is your car depreciation, your car wear and tear, your car vehicle maintenance. The more you drive, guess what? The more often you need to change your brake pads. The more often you need to get oil changes. Oil changes are the least of your worries. The more often your transmission goes out, your radiator, your battery, just not even battery because batteries are pretty cheap, but these bigger ticket items that usually when you drive, the average person drives 10, 15,000 miles a year, they're getting these things every 3 years, whatever, you guys spend $300-400. When you're literally putting hundreds of miles on your car per day, you will as an Uber driver, Lyft driver, if you're driving a lot, these things start breaking down more and more and more. If you need to calculate in, and the IRS does a really good job actually of just telling you, hey, at least for 2023, it's 65.5 cents per mile that they estimate that if you're using that as a business mile, that's the estimated cost. So if you go out and drive 100 miles for Uber and you made $100, well, you spent $65.5 in expenses. That's just an estimate that the IRS gives you. You only profited 35 bucks, but you put on 100 miles on your car and, you know, like Uber tells you, oh, you made $100, but really your profit was only 35 bucks. Like, these are things you actually need to do. If you just go, oh yeah, I made 100 bucks today, but I drove 200 miles on my car. It's like, now all of a sudden you made 100 bucks, but you profited negative after the quote unquote estimated expenses because you absorbed $120 worth of expenses that you will pay for in your car depreciation, in vehicle maintenance, like, you know, I'm talking about these things that keep breaking down in your car, and then also in gas. And you I would say most Uber drivers only think about their gas or their, you know, charging electricity costs. They don't consider how much their car's value is going down. If you have a car that has 50,000 miles on it, you know, you can sell the car for 20 grand, whatever, 15 grand, 20 grand. Then you put on 100,000 miles on it in a year. Now your car's only worth, now it has 150,000 miles on it. Now the car's only worth 5 grand. You just lost 15 grand in equity. Most drivers don't consider that, or they just think, oh, whatever, who cares? I'm gonna drive the car anyway. No, you're not. If you weren't driving for Uber, that car that had 50,000 miles on it, the next year probably would only have 60 or 65, not 150. So these are the reasons why I think you basically should not drive for Uber. But I do think, I will have to say, I do think Uber and Lyft is a great like interim job to have. Like, if you move to a new city and you need to pay rent while you look for a new career, this is ideal to go. And you're already signed up for Uber, you land in your city, you start working the next day for Uber, but you're filling out job applications for your long-term career that you're passionate about. Or maybe you want to be an actor and you're just like, I'm just gonna work Uber and Lyft for 6 months or a year while I do acting jobs. That's great. I honestly think that that's fine. And if you can, crunch the numbers and really figure it out, or if you have credit card debt like myself, I have 5 grand in credit card debt. Okay, I'm gonna put my head down and drive Uber and Lyft as much as I can until I can pay off my credit card debt. Or if you really need rent, or it's kind of like a last resort thing, I think it's great to be signed up on these apps. But that's just kind of the reasoning why I don't think you should be driving for Uber and for Lyft. I just don't think it's a great long-term main source of income. I think it's a great long-term side income. Like, if you have a job that pays you 60, 70 grand a year, and then you're making an extra 10, 15K a year with Uber, or if you have your own small business that you run, let's say you're a business owner and you drive the heck out of your car, now you can write off these miles as a business write-off. Like, there's some cool tax things you can do. Consult with a CPA. I am not a licensed public accountant. Please do not take this as tax advice, but you can talk to an accountant about potential tax savings you could get with putting miles on your car that you use for business. So there is a lot of really cool benefits with driving for Uber and Lyft. Again, I'm not totally against it. I just think there's a time and a place to drive for Uber and Lyft, and there's a time and place where you should definitely not drive for Uber and Lyft. Now, I should say this as well. There is a huge safety risk as well with driving Uber and Lyft. The more you drive, it's twofold. Number one, I would say this is probably more applicable to everybody, regardless of your age, your gender, your looks, whatever. But the more you drive, the more at risk you are of getting into an accident. Every time you go out and drive, every time you turn on your car, every time you turn onto a freeway, you are basically risking your life. Driving a car is very dangerous. It's one of the most dangerous activities you can actually do statistically. Much more dangerous than hopping on an airplane. More dangerous than going out and surfing and, you know, getting eaten by a shark. Those are fears you might, oh, I don't want to surf because I don't want to get eaten by a shark. Your chances of getting seriously injured being in a car is much higher than getting eaten by a shark. And I'm not trying to say this as a joke, but like the more you're out and driving, the more at risk you are of getting into an accident. And Uber and Lyft drivers, especially drivers who are driving 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, this is a very dangerous job because now you are statistically like at the top of people who could potentially get into an accident that could potentially hurt you, even if you're the best driver in the world. I don't care. You say, oh, well, I'm a great driver. I'm not getting into an accident, Dylan. That has literally zero effect on you. There's tons of other people driving that could crash into you. Like, you can't control them. So that's the first thing, is you need to like at least consider that. I think that's the thing you should consider is, do I want to put myself at risk of getting into an accident like 10 times as much as just the average person, because you're driving 10 times as much as the average person. The second thing is the risk of having strangers in your car. As a driver, you need to file a background check. You need to upload your driver's license. You need to have proper car insurance. You need to have a clean record. You need to basically be have no criminal history, basically be a good citizen in order to drive. However, your passengers, on the other hand, do not. They don't need to upload their ID. They don't need to upload a background check or file a background check. They don't need to have no criminal history. Matter of fact, a passenger can sign up to be an Uber passenger and they can write their name. I actually know this because one of my friends does this. Her name on the Uber passenger app is Kanye West. Literally, that's her name. That is not her real name, obviously. But when you go and pick her up, it says Kanye West. There's no photo, there's nothing. And what happens if they get banned? They just create a new number or go get a new number. There's so many apps now, you can just get a free phone number. Use one of those apps, get a free phone number, create a new account, and you don't know who this person is. And it's not like, oh, I'm discriminating against somebody who might have a criminal history. It's also just like that person has no risk of like being tracked. Like you as a driver, like all your stuff is being tracked. That person who gets in, you don't know who they are. That's like, it's just dangerous to have somebody in your car, and especially when you're doing super nighttime rides where it's pitch black outside. You're out in the middle of nowhere, nobody can see a thing. It starts to get a little freaky, a little scary, because you got somebody who gets in your back seat, they're drunk, they're intoxicated, they're creepy, they're flirty. I've had people who basically, they've done some very questionable things to me. I've been driving and I got people in my back seat offering me money to go out and hang out with them for the night. Yeah, weird. Mostly by men. I get a lot of men who are very creepy to me. And it's a very real concern. And women get, I don't know the statistics on this, but I would assume that women get hit on much more or get these creepy offerings. And I have friends who are both drivers and passengers who are females, and they say that it's, you know, it's scary. It is scary. And I wouldn't want my mom to go out and drive for Uber for that reason alone, or my sister, or any woman, or basically any woman, or honestly any guy that I like fully respect. I would be like, yeah, you probably don't want to drive for Uber for that reason alone. If you drive during the day, yeah, your chances of all that happening is very low. But anyways, I'm rambling. I hope I honestly dissuaded some of you guys from not driving for Uber to save yourself from this massive headache. Or if you are driving for Uber, make sure you have the tax thing all figured out. We have some links below for Work Solo. When you sign up for Work Solo with our link, they will send you $10 simply for signing up for free and linking your active gig account. But they will help you track your mileage properly, because you don't want to use the mileage that Uber and Lyft gives you, because they only use online miles. They're not tracking all the miles that you drive. So Work Solo will help you track your miles properly. They'll also help you track your expenses properly for tax write-offs. They even help you they even will file your taxes. You can file your taxes through Solo. They have a partnership. So they can basically help you take care of all of that. And then the other thing is tracking on your own. You should also be tracking how much you're paying in like car depreciation, vehicle maintenance, vehicle wear and tear, and gas or electricity. But yeah, that's kind of my whole thoughts on the whole thing. So sorry if this was very long, but I think it's worth it. At least hopefully one of you guys learned something from this. So thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. Check out the helpful links down below. We have discounted products for your car, for people who want to take care of your car. We have products down below in our description. We have Work Solo. We have Play Octopus that will help you make more money when you drive. You'll get a free tablet when you use our link below to put in your car to for your passengers to play games on. You as a driver make money in return. So check out all those helpful links in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. I'd love to hear you guys rant in the comment section. And thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.